When I was a child, I spent most of my afternoons playing in the garden behind our house. It was a simple garden, with a few trees, colorful flowers, and a small pond in the corner where frogs lived. It was my special place, a world where I could let my imagination run free. I could be anything I wanted, an explorer, a pirate, or a knight. But one day, something very real changed my world forever. That afternoon, I was wandering around the garden, pretending to be an adventurer looking for hidden treasure. The sun was shining, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming roses. Everything seemed perfect, until I heard a soft sound, almost like a whisper. It wasn't the wind or the birds singing in the trees. No, this was different. I followed the sound, my heart beating faster with each step. I crouched down by a bush, and that's when I saw it. A small bird, a sparrow, lay there on the ground, trembling. Its tiny body was covered in dust, and one of its wings looked twisted, as if it had been hurt. Without thinking, I gently scooped the bird up into my hands. It felt so fragile, like a delicate leaf that could be blown away by the wind. "It's okay," I whispered, "I've got you." The little sparrow blinked its tiny eyes at me, as if it understood. I didn't know much about birds, but I could see it was in trouble. Its wing was injured, and I knew that without help, it wouldn't survive. I had to do something. I carefully carried the sparrow back to the house, my heart heavy with concern. I had never taken care of a bird before, but I couldn't just leave it there. I needed to help. In my room, I made a small nest for the sparrow using an old box and some soft cloth. I placed the bird inside, making sure it was comfortable. Then, I ran to the kitchen to get some water and a bit of bread. I remembered once seeing my grandmother feeding bread to the birds, so I thought it might help. The sparrow didn't eat at first. It just sat there, breathing heavily, its tiny body shaking. I watched over it, feeling helpless. "Come on, you can do it," I whispered, hoping my words would somehow reach the little bird. As the days passed, I took care of the sparrow. I gave it food and water every day, and I cleaned its small nest. I even looked up how to take care of injured birds. It wasn't easy, but I was determined. I could see that the bird was slowly getting stronger. It began to chirp softly, and its eyes grew brighter with each passing day. One morning, after several weeks of caring for the bird, I noticed something different. The sparrow was no longer just sitting in its nest. It was moving, hopping from one side of the box to the other. Its wings still looked a little weak, but there was a spark of energy in its movements. "I think you're ready," I said, smiling at the bird. I decided it was time to help the sparrow learn to fly again. I couldn't keep it inside forever. Birds were meant to fly, to be free. So, I took the sparrow outside, back to the garden where I had found it. At first, the sparrow seemed unsure. It looked around, its tiny head turning from side to side. Then, slowly, it began to spread its wings. I held my breath, watching as it flapped its wings once, then twice. It struggled at first, its body wobbling in the air. But then, with a burst of effort, it took off. The sparrow flew a short distance, landing on a nearby tree. I cheered, clapping my hands in excitement. "You did it!" I shouted. But the sparrow wasn't finished. It hopped onto a higher branch, then flapped its wings again. This time, it flew higher, its small body rising into the sky. I watched in awe as it soared through the air, its wings catching the sunlight. For the next few days, the sparrow continued to return to the garden. It would fly around, exploring the trees and bushes, but it always came back to the spot where I had first found it. I liked to think that it remembered me, that it knew I had helped it when it needed someone. One evening, as the sun was setting and the sky was painted with shades of pink and orange, the sparrow came to visit one last time. It perched on the window ledge of my room, chirping softly. I smiled at it, feeling a mix of happiness and sadness. I knew this was its way of saying goodbye. The next morning, the sparrow didn't return. I looked for it in the garden, hoping to see it flying around, but it was gone. I felt a strange emptiness in my heart. I had grown attached to the little bird, and now it was free, living its own life. But as I stood there, I realized something important. The sparrow had taught me a valuable lesson. It had shown me that no matter how small or weak we might feel, we all have the strength to rise again. We all have the power to heal and to fly. As the weeks passed, I continued to play in the garden. It was still my special place, filled with adventures and dreams. But now, it also held the memory of the little sparrow. Whenever I looked at the trees or heard the birds singing, I thought of my feathered friend. I wondered where it was, what new places it had discovered. And even though I missed it, I was happy. I had been part of its journey, helping it find its wings again. And in a way, the sparrow had helped me, too. It had shown me the beauty of kindness, of caring for something fragile and watching it grow strong. It had reminded me that even the smallest creatures have the greatest courage. I never saw the sparrow again, but I knew it was out there, somewhere, flying free under the wide open sky. And every time I heard the soft flutter of wings in the air, I smiled, knowing that the little bird had found its way. Its journey had ended, but mine was just beginning.